Most people think the price of the BMW in the driveway tells you how much money the owner has. And most people are dead wrong. I've watched a man in a Finance 3 Series with fake M badges sweat over a $400 brake job. And I've watched a quiet guy in a 15-year-old wagon write a check for a house. The badge on the trunk tells you almost nothing. The story behind it tells you everything. And if you want proof the badge and the bank account have nothing to do with each other, look at what's happening right now. As of 2026, the fastest depreciating new car in America isn't some bargain econobox. It's the BMW 7 Series, the flagship, the most expensive sedan they sell, bleeding value faster than anything else on four wheels. A new 5 Series that's stickered around 65 grand can be worth under 30 just 5 years later. And here's the kicker. Roughly 60% of new BMWs today aren't even bought. They're leased, which means most of the people you see in a shiny new one don't actually own the car at all. Hold on to that, because it's going to matter more with every tier we climb. Because there are really only 7 kinds of BMW owner in the world. 7 tiers. And they run from the man who is quietly drowning to keep that roundel on his hood, all the way up to the billionaire who owns a BMW so exclusive it doesn't even wear the badge. I'm going to walk you up that ladder, rung by rung, with the real numbers, the prices, the repair bills, the depreciation nobody warns you about. And somewhere on this list is you. By the end, you'll know exactly which tier you're standing on, and which tier is quietly lying to everyone around it. Let's start at the bottom, because Tier 1 is the most common BMW owner in America, and the one the entire community secretly cannot stand. You know this guy. You might have been this guy. He's driving a high-mileage E90 328i, or maybe a base F30 320i, and the first thing he did when he got it was peel the 320i badge off the trunk so nobody would know which one he bought. Then he added an M badge to the grille. Maybe an M Sport spoiler off a website. The car says M3 to a stranger at 50 feet. The title says 4-cylinder economy sedan. Here's the part that stings. The overwhelming majority of M-badged BMWs rolling around this country have zero M-division engineering in them. None. The real M cars are built by a separate operation in Garching, Germany, with their own engines and their own suspensions. What most people are buying is an M Sport appearance package. Sportier bumpers, a steering wheel, some badges. It's a costume, and Tier 1 wears that costume with his whole chest. The money underneath is where it gets ugly. This is a man who bought a $14,000 used BMW at a buy here pay here lot at 22% APR, because his credit couldn't clear anything better. He's house poor on 4 wheels. And a used German car at that price point is not a car, it's a slot machine. 1 failed electric water pump, 1 oil filter housing gasket weeping onto the belt, and he's staring at a $1,200 repair he has to put on a card. And I want you to remember that repair bill, because 3 tiers from now, you're going to meet an owner who pays 10 times that on purpose, and considers it a bargain. Hold that thought. The truth about Tier 1 is that he didn't buy a luxury car. He bought the idea of one, on credit. And the car owns him a little more every month. There's no shame in starting somewhere. But this isn't ownership. It's a hostage situation with heated seats. Speaking of which, Tier 2 looks like he's doing better. And on the surface, he is. He's not in some clapped-out E90. He's in a brand new 330i, or an X3, gleaming, current body style, the one in the commercials. He pulls up, and people assume he's arrived. He hasn't arrived. He's renting. This is the lease guy. And the lease is the most misunderstood deal in the car world, because it feels affordable, and it's anything but. He's paying somewhere around $550 to $650 a month to drive that 330i, and at the end of 3 years he hands the keys back and owns exactly nothing. No equity, no asset, a folder of payment receipts and a disposition fee. Then he signs again, and again. He will pay for that car for the rest of his life, and never once have a car. Now, the dealer loves Tier 2, Because here's a little secret the finance office will never say out loud. BMW would genuinely rather lease you the car than sell it to you. The leases keep you on a leash. They keep you coming back every 36 months. And they keep the used market stocked with off-lease inventory the brand controls. And I haven't even told you about the subscriptions yet. A few years back, BMW tried to charge owners a monthly fee to turn on heated seats. Seats with the heating elements already physically built into the car, already paid for, sitting there warm and disabled until you coughed up around $18 a month. That one caused such an uproar they walked it back. But the fact that it was ever on the table tells you everything about how the brand sees Tier 2, not as an owner, as a revenue stream with a pulse. Here's the brutal math. You don't own the BMW. The BMW owns you. For a lot of men on this tier, that's not a punchline. It's their actual financial life. They are spending Tier 4 money to look like Tier 4, and building nothing. But the next owner I'm about to show you spends less than Tier 2, and the entire BMW community would die for him. Because Tier 3 is where it stops being about image, and starts being about something the badge chasers will never understand. Now we're getting somewhere. Tier 3 doesn't care what the guy at the stoplight thinks. He bought his BMW with cash, and it's old. Picture an E46 M3 in Laguna Seca blue, or an E39 540i with the manual gearbox, the 6-speed, the one everybody says is the best sports sedan of the entire 1990s, and they're probably right. This man worships the naturally aspirated inline 6, the way some men worship a Les Paul. He knows the chassis code of every BMW made since the Reagan administration. He's on the forums at midnight. And here's the thing that separates him from everyone below him. He does his own work. That E46 M3 has a famous, ugly little secret. The rear subframe, the structural piece that bolts the rear suspension to the body, is known to crack right where it mounts, on the single most worshipped modern M car ever built. A weak point at the heart of a legend. And while Tier 1 would panic, and Tier 2 would just hand it back at lease end, Tier 3 jacks the car up in his own garage, welds in the reinforcement plates himself, and posts the photos online for internet points. He fixes the dream instead of selling it. He's not rich. Let me be clear about that. He might be a machinist, a retired teacher, a guy who's good with his hands and patient with his money. The car's worth maybe $30,000 to $60,000 now, and yes, those clean E46 M3 prices have been climbing for years. But he didn't buy it as an investment. He bought it because it makes him feel like he did when he was 25. In 30 years around these cars, I'll tell you the one thing I've noticed about the Tier 3 owner. He spends the least money and walks away with the most car. He's the happiest man on this entire list, and he's got nothing to prove to a soul. But here's the part that'll annoy half of you watching. He's also the most insufferable guy at any Cars and Coffee, because he's quietly convinced he's better than every other owner on this ranking. And the infuriating thing? He's usually right, which makes the next tier so interesting, because Tier 4 has more money than the purist, a lot more. And the purist looks down on him anyway. Why? That's where this gets uncomfortable. Here's the man BMW actually builds the cars for. Not the enthusiast. Not the flexer. This guy. Tier 4 is the doctor, the dentist, the regional sales director, the lawyer who made partner. He's in a new G20 330i, or, more likely, an X5. Because at this stage of life, it's about the family and the dog, and the airport runs. He paid cash, or financed it sensibly at a rate his actual credit earned him, and he services it at the dealer without flinching at the bill. No fake badges. No welding subframes at midnight. No lease shell game. By every reasonable measure, this is the BMW owner doing everything right. The one with the money, the stability, the clean decisions. Which is exactly why what I'm about to tell you makes no sense at all. And the enthusiasts in Tier 3 quietly cannot stand him. Think about how strange that is. The guy with more money, who pays his bills, who does everything right, he's the one the real BMW guys roll their eyes at. Because to the purist, Tier 4 doesn't love the car. He doesn't know what an S54 engine is. He couldn't tell you the difference between a real M and an M Sport package if his life depended on it. He bought an appliance with a good badge. To the purist, that's almost worse than the Flexer, because at least the Flexer is trying. Here's what Tier 4 knows that the purist doesn't, though. He knows the X5 with the N63 twin-turbo V8 had a reliability record so rough that BMW quietly rolled out what they called a customer care package, extended coverage, free oil changes, replacement parts, to deal with the failures. When a manufacturer launches a special program just to keep an engine from embarrassing them, that engine is eating itself, and the smart Tier 4 buyer either avoided that motor entirely or made sure the warranty outlived his ownership. He's not emotional about the car. And not being emotional is exactly what lets him buy and sell at the right time and never get hurt. Real quick, before we climb into the serious money, and the next 3 tiers are where the numbers get genuinely absurd. More than 80% of you watching this right now aren't subscribed, which means the algorithm has no reason to ever show you the rest of this ranking, or the next one. If you've made it this deep into a video about BMW owners, you already know which tier you're standing on. Do me one favor, hit subscribe, so the next breakdown actually finds you instead of disappearing. Now let's talk about the men whose bank accounts finally caught up to the badge. Because Tier 5 is where the M finally becomes real, and where the cheapest dream becomes the most expensive mistake of a man's life. Tier 5 is the first man on this list whose car is genuinely as fast as it looks. No costume, no appearance package. A real M car, an M3, an M4, an M5, built in Garching, with a motor and a chassis the regular factory never touches. Often there are 2 cars in the garage, a daily and a toy. He does track days, real ones, with a helmet and a coach, and he comes home grinning with his front tires turned to soup. This is real disposable income. The badge finally matches the statement. An M3 competition runs north of $80,000 new, and he didn't have to think too hard about it. He's not house poor. The car is a result of the money, not a disguise for the lack of it. But here's where Tier 5 splits into 2 very different men. Because there's a version of this guy who can't quite afford the new M car. So he goes hunting in the used market for a legend on a budget. And the most dangerous trap in the entire BMW world is waiting for him. The E60 M5. The one with the screaming V10. A 500 horsepower Formula 1 inspired engine in a 4-door sedan, and you can buy one today for the price of a used Camry. And that, right there, is how grown men go broke, because that V10 is a hand grenade with the pin half out. The rod bearings wear out and let go. The SMG transmission pump fails. The throttle actuators die in pairs. The maintenance on that engine, done correctly, costs more per year than a lot of people's mortgages. Remember Tier 1, sweating over a $1,200 repair? The man who buys the cheap V10 M5 will spend $10,000 or $15,000 keeping it alive, and he'll tell you it was worth every penny, while his wife quietly looks up divorce attorneys. Cheap to buy is never cheap to own. Write that down. The smart Tier 5 owner knows this. He buys the reliable M car, keeps it under warranty, and lets the other guy fund the engine rebuild. He's wealthy enough to be sensible, which is the whole point of being wealthy. But Tier 6? Tier 6 has figured out something almost nobody else on this list understands. He's figured out how to own BMWs that make him money. And once you see how, you'll never look at an old BMW the same way again. Tier 5 buys performance. Tier 6 buys assets that happen to have 4 wheels. This is the collector, and he's playing an entirely different game. In his garage, next to something modern and fast, sits an E30 M3 from the 1980s. Boxy, flared, the homologation special they built so they could go racing. Or a 2002 Tii from the early 70s, the little car that basically invented the sports sedan as we know it. He treats these the way other men treat gold or land. And here's the number that should make your jaw drop. A clean, documented E30 M3 today sells for well over $100,000. The pristine ones, the low-mileage Sport Evolution models, have crossed into the $250,000 range and beyond. That's supercar money. For a 35-year-old four-cylinder BMW that came with crank windows. The old BMW everyone's grandfather could have bought new for under $35,000 is now outrunning brand-new exotics at auction. So while Tier 4 watches his new X5 lose 50% of its value in 4 years, and Tier 2 pours money into a lease that returns nothing, Tier 6 is sitting on cars that appreciate. He buys them right, stores them properly, drives them gently on sunny Sundays, and sells them years later for more than he paid. He's the only man on this list whose hobby is also his portfolio. This is usually old money, or self-made money with discipline. The kind of guy who reads the auction results the way other men read the sports page. He's not impressed by horsepower figures. He's impressed by provenance, by originality, by a clean service history going back to the first owner. And he'll tell you, flat out, that the man who bought a brand new M5 made a worse financial decision than the man who bought a 30-year-old hatchback. And the numbers actually back him up. He understands that the rarest BMWs were never the most expensive when new. They were the ones nobody saw coming. He's the smartest owner on this list, but he is not the top. Because there's one more tier above him. And at the very top of the BMW pyramid, the strangest thing happens. The BMW badge disappears completely. The richest BMW owner in the world might be driving something that doesn't have a single roundel on it. Let me show you what I mean. And now we reach the top, the summit. And it's not what you think. You'd expect Tier 7 to be a man in the most expensive M car money can buy. It isn't. The genuine billionaire doesn't care about a quarter-mile time, and he certainly isn't doing his own oil changes. At this altitude, the car stops being something you drive and becomes something that's commissioned for you. This is BMW Individual, the bespoke arm of the company, where if you have the money and the relationship, you don't pick from a color chart. You bring them a color. A paint sample from a painting you own. A shade matched to your wife's eyes. Leather dyed to a tone that exists nowhere else on Earth. The Halo cars live up here too. The reborn 3.0 CSL. Built in the dozens, not the thousands. Priced like a house in a good neighborhood. The man at Tier 7 doesn't buy a BMW. He has one made. But here's the twist that recontextualizes this entire ranking. Here's the punchline I've been holding for 20 minutes. The literal top of the BMW ownership pyramid is a car with no BMW badge on it at all. Because BMW owns Rolls-Royce. Has since the late 90s. Every Phantom, every Cullinan, every Ghost, gliding past you with that silver lady on the hood. That is a BMW Group product. Engineered with BMW money, riding on BMW architecture, often with a BMW-developed V12 under that endless hood. So when a true billionaire wants the absolute pinnacle of what this company can build, he doesn't get the roundel. He gets the spirit of ecstasy. The badge that started this whole video, the thing Tier 1 glued onto his grill to look important, has vanished entirely by the time you reach the man who could buy the factory. That's the joke the whole ranking has been building toward. At the very bottom, a man adds fake badges to feel like he has money. At the very top, the man who actually has the money drives a BMW with no badge at all. The roundel matters most to the people who can least afford it, and not at all to the one who could buy them all. So where does that leave you? Here's the truth. After walking all 7 rungs, the respect and the smart money was never at the extremes. It's not Tier 1, drowning in a financed costume. And it's not even Tier 7, because honestly, by the time you're commissioning bespoke paint and being driven around in a Phantom, the car has stopped mattering to you at all. The extremes are where the car owns the man, in opposite directions. The broke guy serves the badge, and the billionaire doesn't even notice it. The sweet spot lives in the middle. Tier 3, the purist who pays cash for the car he loves and knows it inside out. Tier 4, the professional who buys what he can comfortably afford and never loses a night's sleep over it. And Tier 6, the collector who turned the whole thing into an asset. Those three men understand something the others don't. The badge tells you nothing. The relationship behind it tells you everything. A man in a paid-off 15-year-old E39, he maintains himself is richer, in every way that counts, than a man in a leased X5 he can't really afford. I've watched it play out for 30 years. The car in the driveway is the least reliable signal of wealth there is. What matters is whether the car owns you or you own the car. So be honest with yourself. Which tier were you while you watched this? And which tier are you actually trying to look like? Because the gap between those two answers, that's the whole game. If this hit a nerve, you already know what to do. Subscribe, because next I'm breaking down the exact used BMWs that'll bankrupt you the moment the warranty ends, the ones that look like a steal and end up costing more than the car. You do not want to find that out the hard way. I'll see you in that one.